We've seen the heat building up over Western Australia with temperatures approaching 50 degrees over previous days. That heat is now being dragged eastwards. So it's really peaking over South Australia today, and then we will see it really starting to build over much of the southeast as we go over the weekend and into next week. So we are looking at possible records being broken, some places over particularly eastern South Australia, northwestern Victoria and inland parts of New South Wales could break some of their January records or maybe even some annual records for heat as we go into next week. And look, one of the good things about this situation is that we're having a lot of heat coming over. We do have those heatwave warnings, severe to, in some cases, extreme heatwave warnings, but it's not accompanied by quite as much wind as we saw a few weeks ago. So we are looking at high to extreme fire danger across, much high across much of WA, high to extreme across much of South Australia and Victoria, and also parts of New South Wales as well. In South Australia, we do have the risk of catastrophic fire danger for the Yorke Peninsula at the moment, and also some high-end extremes as well. That's where we will see probably the windiest conditions. So that does give the mean that any fires that start in that area will be almost impossible to control. But we do have widespread extreme fire danger, so it is a concern this weekend with the heat and that fire danger. But the good news is we don't have quite as much wind as we had a few weeks ago.
Meanwhile, in the north of WA, you've got your eye on a tropical low sort of around the Kimberley coast region. Where's that system tracking at the moment?
Yeah, so it's currently sitting about 660 kilometres northwest of BoM and moving towards the coast. So it is expected to intensify as it gets closer and is a high chance to develop into a tropical cyclone perhaps by tomorrow morning. And then it will continue to move towards the coast and continue to intensify, which does mean it could reach a Category 2 strength by the time it's getting close to the coast later on Saturday. And then it is likely to move across the coast sometime late Saturday or early Sunday, and then it will weaken as it moves inland, but still bring a lot of heavy rainfall and damaging winds to the northern Kimberley coast. We do have a watch area that extends from Bidjadanga up to the Mitchell Plateau. That includes BoM and Derby as well.
Okay, one to watch closely over the weekend, no doubt. I just want to touch on Queensland as well. There is still a string of flood warnings in place there. Has the state reached the sort of past the worst of it yet, though?
Look, it has. We haven't seen that much rainfall over the last little while, so we have seen a lot of the floodwaters making their way downstream. Some of the warnings have started to be downgraded. We're left with just one major flood warning now, and good news is that Rockhampton peaked yesterday and is starting to ease now. So in the Fitzroy catchment, that is improving there. It is a very slow-moving situation, though, particularly out in the west where the catchments are really flat. So that water is still making its way downstream. There are still warnings in place for particularly areas in the lower parts of the catchment where the water is still arriving. But the good news is we haven't had too much more rainfall recently. And we're not really expecting too much over the flooded areas over the coming days. We're just keeping an eye on a tropical low that looks like developing in the Gulf of Carpentaria. Depending on where that goes, that might bring some rainfall to the northwest of Queensland, but it also could stay over the Gulf or perhaps move over the Cape York Peninsula. So we'll be watching that one closely.
Always something to keep an eye on. Christie Johnson from the Bureau of Meteorology, thanks very much for your time.